I was sitting on the cold stretcher, with my t-shirt sticking to my back because of the sweat. The hospital's fluorescent lights buzzed above my head, and the air smelled of old disinfectant and oxidized metal. My arms still throbbed from falling down the bus stairs. I thought that was it. Another trip to the emergency room, another day trying to exist without bothering anyone. But when the doctor entered, he stopped at the door as if he had seen a ghost, and maybe it did. He looked me up and down, then at the tablet in his hands. His face turned pale. His eyes trembled as if they were reading something that his brain refused to accept. And then he said the sentence that changed everything. "The lady is dead, officially, in the system. You died on March 17th, 2014. I don't know how you are here. This is not possible." My heart raced, not from emotion, but from terror. The hands started to shake. Cold sweat ran down his temples. I laughed, out of pure nervousness. He said it must be a mistake. I showed my ID, my health center ID, even my old library card. He just shook his head. "It's not possible. It's all here. Your ID number, your photo, your fingerprint. You were buried more than 10 years ago." I got up from the stretcher. I tried to stay calm. My legs shook like bamboo in the wind. A nurse entered the room. She whispered something in his ear. They both looked at me as if I were a shadow, as if I were violating some rule of reality just by being there, as if my presence in that hospital was wrong. They asked me to wait. I was left in a wheelchair in the hallway. Nobody looked me in the eye. People walked past me as if I were part of the furniture. Invisible, a dead woman with a beating heart. My name is Helena Duarte. I'm 68 years old, and in that moment, I realized that my entire life had been erased without me knowing, or maybe deleted on purpose. I live in a discreet guest house in a city too big to care about me. I clean apartments for people who don't know my name. I take care of a bedridden lady on Tuesdays and Fridays. I send hidden money to a granddaughter who doesn't even know I'm her grandmother. I do everything in silence because I learned the hard way that silence saves, that the less you appear, the more chances you have of staying alive. But that day, everything fell apart. I left the hospital with an envelope in my hands. The attendant said that, according to protocol, they had to give me a copy of the form, and there it was, my full name, my old photo, the date of death, cause of death, morphine overdose following fire in abandoned accommodation. I stared at that paper at the bus stop. The wind blew hot, stirring up the dust. I felt nauseous. I didn't die in 2014. I was alive. I was sure. I remembered every day, every job I did to survive. But there, on paper, I was a corpse. And there was no record of me after that date. As if I had disappeared from the world, I spent the next few days in silence. I went back to work as if nothing had happened. But inside, something was breaking apart. At every corner, I saw ghosts. I felt like someone was watching me. I started dreaming about fire, with sirens, with hands pulling my body from the rubble, dreams that seemed like memories. I began to distrust my own story. What if that death had actually happened? What if someone had taken my name? Or worse, what if someone had erased my identity for a reason that I buried in the past? The following week, I decided to investigate. I couldn't continue living like an error in the system. I went to the registry office in the city where I supposedly died. I asked for a copy of the death certificate. The employee looked at me suspiciously, but handed it over. The certificate had everything: my name, my age, even my identity number. But the coroner's signature didn't match any hospital in the area. The funeral home listed on the document, it doesn't exist anymore. And the address where they said they found the body was an old warehouse used by homeless people, a place I knew well, because I lived there for almost 4 years. Yes, I lived on the street. I ate from the trash. I slept under an overpass. I was beaten by a security guard once, just for trying to wash my face in a public bathroom sink. They called me Dona Lenya because I always carried pieces of wood to protect myself at night. Nobody knew my real name. I didn't even use it anymore. Until the day I disappeared. Now everything made sense. That death on paper was too convenient. It was as if someone had taken advantage of my absence to bury me once and for all. Literally, someone used my past to erase me from the present. And maybe that was part of a deal I accepted myself. Or I was forced to accept it. But why? What was so dangerous in my past that it would justify erasing my existence? That night, I went home and went straight to the back of the closet. I took out an old shoebox, sealed with tape. Inside was the bracelet from the hospital where I gave birth to my daughter in 1984, a torn photo of a man I loved and later denounced, and a key that I no longer remembered where it was. But at that moment, it seemed to be the only thing that was still real in my story. If you're listening to this right now and you feel like the world has erased you, that your name is no longer worth anything, I want you to know there is a way out, but it starts with courage. The same courage I will need to unearth everything I hid for more than 30 years. Leave a like, subscribe to the Emotion of Age channel, and activate the bell. Here we show that it is never too late to regain dignity, no matter how dark the past may have been. And if you have already experienced something similar, comment with the word shadow, because sometimes you have to face the shadow to truly exist again. I spent hours looking at that key in my palm. It was made of old iron, small, rusty around the edges, but disproportionately heavy, not for the metal, but for the memory. Something about her made me feel sick, as if my body remembered something that my mind wanted to forget. The past was coming back, and not gently. It would come back like a knock on the door you don't want to open. But I knew I needed to open up, because if someone buried me alive, maybe it would be with my permission. And to understand why, I needed to go back much further than 2014. I needed to go back to the beginning, to the rubble where my story began. My mother's name was Francisca. She was a tough woman, with cracked hands, a tired look, and few words. I washed clothes outside, cleaned, sold brigadeiros at the station when I had time. I never knew who my father was, and she never made a point of inventing one. I grew up in a dirt floor neighborhood where asphalt was a privilege and silence was suspicious. At 8 years old, I already knew the smell of fear. It was the smell of the pinga that my uncle brought when he came to visit, and also the smell of gasoline that the kids on the corner used to extinguish other people's cars. At 12, I started working, not by choice, but by necessity. My mother fell ill, a tumor that left her bedridden. I cleaned bathrooms in bakeries and mopped in beauty salons. At 15, I left school for good. At that time, I had a notebook with a single verse written on the cover. The world will not forgive me, but maybe one day it will understand me. I didn't even know what that meant, but today it makes more sense than ever. It was also at 15 that I met Sandro. He was 28. He drove a blue Opel and always showed up wearing a jacket, polished shoes, and smelling of expensive cologne. He said he was a businessman. Later I discovered that he was a loan shark and a broker of stolen cars. But at that time, for me, he was the only person who saw me. He took me to eat coccinha at the bus station, gave me chocolate cigarettes, and told me I was smarter than all the other girls combined. I clung to it as if it were salvation. And maybe it was, or at least it seemed like it. At 16, I went to live with him. My mother had already died. The coffin was paid for with a loan that Sandro got from one of his partners, a value that was never told to me, but that became an eternal debt. In the second month of living with him, he asked me for a favor. All you had to do was take an envelope to an address in the center. He said I didn't even need to open it. It was a delivery, nothing more. I did. When I came back, he gave me 500 cruises, enough money to pay 2 late electricity bills, buy food, and still have some left over to buy a new blouse. He smiled and said I was more useful than pretty. After that, other deliveries came. Suitcases, envelopes, packages. I never asked. I learned quickly not to ask questions. Whoever asks too much disappears. I saw this all the time. Girls who disappeared, guys who disappeared overnight. The street didn't miss anyone. She just followed, and I learned to follow her. At 18, I got pregnant. Sandro didn't like it. He said that children were a hindrance to business. I wanted to have the baby. He told me to choose, him or the belly. I chose my daughter, and for that, I was expelled. He threw me in 2 bags onto the sidewalk. I returned to the neighborhood where I grew up, but the house was no longer mine. I stayed in a squat, then in a boarding house, then on the street. Nobody gave me a job with a 6-month belly and no address. My daughter was born in a public hospital, with the power cut off the next day. It didn't have a name yet. It was only after a week that I decided to call her Clara, because even in the midst of that darkness, she was light. For a while, I tried to live right. I worked as a carer, washerwoman, candy seller, but it was little, very little. And when Clara got sick, I had to choose, buy medicine or buy food. That's when I made the first choice that I'll never forget again. EC, a man appeared at the occupation. I knew myself from Sandro's time. He said he needed someone to take care of documents. It paid well, very good. I accepted. I went back to making deliveries. But now I knew what I was carrying: fake licenses, birth certificates, forged passports. And I started to learn: typing, forging signatures, manipulating papers. I became the document girl. It was fast, discreet, efficient. I received money in envelopes, never too much at once, but enough. Enough to pay for Clara's health plan, enough for her to study, enough so that no one would go hungry. But everything has a price. One day, I delivered a document to a man who later appeared dead in the newspaper. They said he was using a fake identity, one of mine. The other day, I saw a woman arrested with a passport that I had helped to forge. I pretended it wasn't me, but each piece of news was a blow to the conscience. And still, I continued. Because I told myself I did it out of love, that every mother would do the same, that it was the system's fault, that the world was too dirty for me to try to be clean, until Sandro came back. In 2006, I was living in a small room with Clara, already a teenager. He appeared out of nowhere. He said he had business, that he needed me again. I refused. He laughed. He said he knew everything. I knew where I lived, where my daughter studied, who my clients were, and if I didn't help, he would make a point of erasing me again. For real this time. That's when I accepted the dirtiest job of all. I falsified an identity for a man who I now know was wanted for human trafficking. I received 7,000 reais, but the price was my soul. Because days later, Clara disappeared for 2 nights. When he came back, he didn't want to say anything. I just cried. And I knew it was retaliation, or notice. That night, I burned almost all the fake documents I had. I took the remaining money and fled. I went to another city. I hid. I created another name. And there, my official story ended. I died, at least on paper. But now, in 2024, my past found me again. And he no longer came to ask for a favor. He was coming to collect what was outstanding. Every mistake, every omission, every choice made in the name of love, but at the expense of dignity. If this part of my story touched you, comment with the word key, because sometimes it is in the wrong choices that we plant the desire for a right one. If you know someone who has lived a difficult life, share this video. Sometimes someone's salvation begins with a story told at the right time. And if you haven't subscribed yet, click now on the Emotion of Age channel. Here, every truth has the power to free a soul. After that night when I faced the box from the past, something changed, not outside, but inside me. The silence of my routine felt heavier, as if every corner hides eyes, as if each step echoed louder than it should. And maybe it was true. Because the next morning, when I arrived at the house of the lady I looked after on Tuesdays, I found a manila envelope under the door. There was no sender, no address, just my real name written in hand, a name that no one had used for almost 20 years. I opened the envelope carefully. Inside, there was just a photo. It was from me, sitting at the bus stop. He wore the same clothes as the day before. The image was recent. Someone had followed me. Someone knew I was alive. And you wanted me to know that. It wasn't just a warning, it was a statement. I was found. My first reaction was to deny it. I tried to think it could be a mistake, but the heart doesn't lie. The feeling of being hunted, watched, was real. The ghosts of the past had a smell, and I could smell them. A smell of sweaty clothes that have been stored for a long time. A smell of a damp basement, of old archives, of fear hidden in the wall. In the following days, more signs began to appear. My cell phone rang and hung up without anyone answering. Someone sent a message without text, just with a marked location in a downtown alley. I deleted it immediately, but the feeling of suffocation grew. I slept poorly. I would wake up at dawn hearing footsteps that might not even be there. Every car noise seemed like a warning. Every lingering look made me want to run. It was on a Wednesday that I received the first direct call. I answered without thinking it was from the pension where I lived. The voice on the other end was low, masculine, drawling. They said you died. I thought it was true. But then you showed up, and now everyone will want to know why. I hung up without saying anything. The number was hidden. I went to the bathroom and vomited. This wasn't just persecution. It was blackmail. And when blackmail comes, what is at stake is not just the past. It's the present. It's survival. I thought about going to the police. But say what? That I was alive? That someone was following me? That I had been presumed dead, and now was it a living threat to anyone? Even I didn't really understand the size of the hole I was in. That's when I decided to look for someone I should have looked for a long time ago. A childhood friend. Clara never knew she existed. Her name was Iolanda. Today, he works as an assistant in a registry office. We arranged to meet in a simple cafe, far from the center. She looked at me as if she saw a ghost. He hugged me tightly. He asked where I had been all these years. I told part of the story, enough for her to understand that I needed help, but not enough for her to judge me. I asked him to check if there was any process, any movement in my name in recent years. She agreed. He said he would give me an answer the next day, but the answer came first. That night, my room was broken into. The door was locked, I'm sure, but when I came home from work, the lock was marked. Everything seemed in place, except for one detail. The box with the old objects was open, and the key disappeared. I sat on the floor. My hands were shaking. That key was the only connection I still had with a place that perhaps hid more truths. And now she had been taken. Whoever was hunting me knew exactly where to look. The next day, Iolanda called me with a trembling voice. He said he had looked at the records, and something strange appeared. Someone reactivated my CPF 3 months ago, but it wasn't me. What's more, they opened a bank account with my real name at an agency in a neighboring city. A large deposit has been made to the account, 12,000 reais. Then the money disappeared. That was it. I was being used. My identity, even dead in the system, had come back to life through other means. And now I was a ticking time bomb. Because if that were to leak, if any investigative body crossed the data, I could be accused of fraud, laundering, or worse. And more than that, I could be silenced again. That same afternoon, I received another envelope. No sender. Inside, a new photo. This time, it was Clara, leaving a market, with her son on her lap, my grandson. The message was clear. They knew everything. Where I was, where my daughter lived, where my grandson studied. I felt my blood freeze. I grabbed my backpack, put what was left of money inside, the fake documents I still kept, the photo, my cell phone, and ran. I didn't know where, but I knew I couldn't stand still any longer. Because now it wasn't just about me. It was about my family, about not allowing anyone else to pay for the mistakes I made. At the station, before boarding for a city where no one knew me, I received one last call. It was the same low voice. You've had too much time to hide. Now it's time to decide which side of history you want to die on. I hung up. There was no more time to escape. For the first time in decades, I realized that running away would no longer protect me. On the contrary, I was the only one who could protect whoever I had left. And that meant facing whatever was behind that key. From that death certificate, from that reactivated account, from my dirty name on documents that I didn't sign. It was time to go back. Not just physically, but emotionally. It was time to stop surviving and start truly existing. If you are following this story and feel that, at some point, you also tried to hide from your past, comment now with the word trace. Because no matter how much we run, we always leave traces. And sometimes, they are the ones who save us. Leave your like, subscribe to the Emoção de Velho channel, and activate the bell. Each episode is a reminder that running away never heals. Only confrontation frees, and he's closer than ever. I got off the bus with my stomach churning. The city where I returned hadn't changed that much, but the eyes that saw me seemed different. As if, even in silence, the walls whispered my real name. At every corner, an unspoken warning. I knew where I needed to go. The key was gone, but my memory was still vivid. And she took me to an old warehouse in the industrial area, a place that used to be used as a makeshift shelter, and that, for a while, was the only roof I had. I entered with my heart racing. Everything was covered in dust, broken glass, musty smell, and old urine. But in the background, behind a loose brick wall, was a metal box. And inside it, I found what looked like an accounting notebook. Names, dates, values, old documents, evidence, detailed records of transactions made using false identities. Some signatures were mine, others of people I thought were dead or missing. And at the end, a loose sheet with a name written in red, Clara Duarte. My daughter, her name there, in the middle of that rotten file, in the middle of that mud. That was a punch in the throat. A part of me was already suspicious. But seeing, touching, feeling is different. That doesn't, it was just about me. They had used my daughter, or planned to use it. And if that was in the wrong hands, She could be accused, involved, dragged into the same hell I went through. That night, I tried to call her. The phone rang 3 times. Then a cold voice responded. A man. He just said that Clara didn't want to talk to me, and that, from that moment on, it would be better for me not to insist anymore. The call dropped, and I understood. Clara knew. Or someone told her some version of me. Maybe they showed part of the story. Maybe they lied, but the damage was already done. 2 days later, a report aired on local TV, a community newspaper, broadcast online. It showed old documents, a blurry photo of me, and the headline was clear. False identity, illegal documents, and an officially dead woman reappearing in suspicious movements. They didn't mention my full name, but it was a matter of time. The reporter said that there was an ongoing investigation into fraud in old civil records, and that there were connections with people linked to illegal immigration networks. Some of the contents came from exactly what I had found in the storage room. Someone had leaked. That same night, I received an audio on WhatsApp. It was Clara's. Her voice was choked, trembling. She said she needed to know the truth, that people had knocked on her door. They showed photos of me, who asked about transactions, about accounts, about crimes. She said she was being threatened, that her son was at risk, and I no longer knew who to trust. There, my heart collapsed. Everything I had done to protect her, all my running away, my silences, my absences, were now turning against her, and worse, against my grandson. The life I fought not to dirty was drowning in the mud of my past. I looked for help. I called Iolanda. I asked him to check if a lawyer from the Defense Department could advise me. I couldn't appear in public yet, but I needed to protect myself and Clara. She sent me the contact of a defender who must be trustworthy. I went to him. I only explained the essentials, but he already knew. When I entered the room, he looked at me as if he had already expected my visit. He said my name appeared in an anonymous tip. What documents with my signature were circulating in a money laundering investigation? That accounts opened in my name were being tracked by an international body. And to make matters worse, someone from my past had given a statement. Someone who knew me in the years when I was doing illegal services. Someone I thought was gone. He didn't say the name, but I knew. It could only be Sandro. The following week, Clara sent me a message. Made an appointment. When I arrived at the agreed place, a small park close to where she lived, I found her sitting on a bench, with her eyes sunken and her arms crossed. She didn't hug me. He didn't smile. He just looked at me like he was trying to see something behind my skin. And then he said, in a firm and cold voice, "You lied to me my whole life. What do I have now? A tarnished name, a tainted story, my son being followed, me being treated like a criminal. Was this the legacy you left me?" I tried to speak. He said everything I did was out of love, that every lie was an attempt to protect her, that I didn't choose that path, but was pushed by a world that never gave me a choice. But she didn't want to listen. He got up, threw a folder on my lap and said, "You are not just a system error, you are a mistake in my life. I died the day I found out who you really were." She left. And there, alone on the bench, with that folder of documents and tears that I couldn't control, I broke down. For the first time in many years, I felt like truly disappearing. Not to hide, but to no longer exist. To not cause more pain. To not carry any more guilt. I sat on the ground with my back against the tree. I saw children playing, a couple passing by with a dog, and there I was, invisible again, but not like before. Not as a survivor, but as someone completely broken. It was that night that I went back to the guest house room, turned on my cell phone recorder, and started to tell everything. I don't like venting, but as a record. Because if I were to disappear for good, at least my story would be there. Naked, no retouching, no versions, truly. And it was on that recording that I said to myself out loud, for the first time, that's enough. I won't hide anymore. I will not let my daughter pay for my sins. I will not accept people using my silence as a weapon. I may have lived like a mistake, but I will die as truth. If you've come this far and know what it's like to be judged for what you hid to protect those you love, comment with the word truth, because in the end, it is only she who can free us. And if this story is stirring with you, subscribe now to the Emoção de Age channel, activate the bell, and share this episode with someone who carries too many secrets. Because a life doesn't have to end the way it started. There's still time. The next morning, I woke up with a goal. His body was still heavy, his eyes were swollen, and his throat burned as if he had been crying inside all night. But the decision I made there, sitting on the edge of that bed with a thin mattress, was different from any before. For once, I wasn't going to run away. I wasn't going to shut up. I wasn't going to accept being treated like a mistake that should remain hidden. If it was to collapse, let it stand. I took my old cell phone, plugged it into the charger, and went into the audio and recordings folder. I started organizing everything. There were old conversations with Iolanda, prints of messages, photos of certificates, images of the record book I found in the deposit. I gathered everything in an online folder, but something was missing, a piece that could make others listen. Because the world doesn't listen to an old, broken woman marked by a criminal past, unless she has something that makes them pay attention. So I went back to Iolanda. I told everything. I didn't hide it anymore. For the first time, I spoke Sandro's name clearly. I told him about the falsified documents, the threats, the recent deposits, the blackmail. She heard everything in silence. Then, he took me to a private room in the registry office where he worked and opened a file that he kept hidden. They were copies of old documents from when Sandro tried to register a company in the name of a now-deceased woman. The signature was similar to mine, but it wasn't mine. He was using the same methods he learned from me, now against me. Iolanda gave me the contact of a criminal lawyer who worked with sensitive cases, a younger woman called Teresa, but who had previously defended victims of the system. We met in a discreet coffee shop, and I brought a physical copy of the evidence folder. Teresa leafed through the papers calmly. She didn't say anything for a few minutes, and then she looked into my eyes with a firm expression. What you have here is not just a defense, it's ammunition. This could bring Sandro down. It can involve prosecutors, police officers, and even business people. Are you aware of the risk? I shook my head. He said he had already lost everything he could lose. Now I just wanted to save what was left. Teresa then proposed a plan. We would use the material to file an official protection request under the allegation of collaborative reporting. But first, we needed a recording, something that was more than documents, something that linked Sandro directly to the recent threats. That's when I thought about using the hidden number that always called me. I sent a message, feigning surrender. He said he wanted to talk, that I was willing to stop digging into the past, that maybe it could be useful again, and he took the bait. Responded with an address and time. Our meeting was scheduled for the following night in an old hotel in the most forgotten neighborhood of the city. Teresa provided hidden recording equipment. I wore a blouse with a built-in microphone. I entered the reception with my soul shaking, but my face calm. I climbed the stairs with weak knees. When I opened the bedroom door, Sandro was there. The same strong cologne smell, the same mocking look, as if the years hadn't passed. He looked at me with that crooked smile and said I was right to look, that maybe there was still a place for me, as long as I knew how to behave, that times were different now, and that, if I cooperated, I could even clear my daughter's name, as long as I erased the traces of what I found. He spoke as if my life were an expired contract, as if my body were an outstanding debt. I let him talk. I recorded every word. When he approached and tried to touch me, I backed away. He said he needed time, what I wanted to think about. He laughed. He said that time was a luxury for those who were still alive on paper. He walked me to the door and whispered in my ear that, if I did something funny, what happened to me in 2014 could happen again. That he had already killed me once in the system. I could do it again. I left there feeling cold on my legs, but with the certainty that I had the proof I needed. I delivered the material to Teresa the next morning. She registered everything. And in less than 72 hours, an investigation warrant was opened. The police, who previously seemed to ignore me, now had something on their hands that involved corruption, notary fraud, money laundering, and identity concealment. One of the prosecutors in the case was young, the son of a woman who had already been the victim of a similar scam. He didn't know who I was, but after listening to the audios, he decided to act. And then the tide began to turn. For once, it wasn't me running away. It was Sandro hiding. He disappeared from home, left the office empty. A week later, an audio of him was leaked to the press. Someone from within his circle began to speak. The article appeared in the newspapers with the title, "The Return of the Woman the System Killed." They used an image of when I was younger, with my face half covered, walking down the street with my daughter on my lap. It was an old photo, but a powerful one. A woman who had been presumed dead now exposed an entire scheme. Clara called me after seeing the report. She cried. He said he didn't know anything. Who believed what they told her? that he thought I was a risk. But now, seeing the audios, seeing the evidence, she began to understand. He apologized, not because I walked away, but because I so easily believed that I was the monster they said I was. I understood. And for the first time in years, we were able to talk like two women, not like a mother and daughter separated by grief. I wasn't free yet, but she was no longer a prisoner. For the first time, I was the agent of my own story, and I felt, despite all the risks, that the truth was giving me back something I never had: control. If you've come this far and already felt the bitter taste of being silenced, comment with the word reaction. Because sometimes, the greatest revenge is just surviving and telling the story as it really was. If this turn of events touched you, share it with someone who needs courage to react. And don't forget to subscribe to the Emotion of Age channel. Here, every truth is a step towards regaining dignity, even after a lifetime of being erased. The week before the hearing, I barely slept. The body reacted as if it sensed that the world was about to turn upside down. But unlike other times, I didn't feel afraid. I felt weight. I felt memory. I felt a responsibility to honor every step of my own story. There came a time when I realized there was no point fighting to clear my name anymore, because my name didn't need to be cleared. He needed to be whole, even with the stains. The forum room was simple but full of tension. The wooden chairs, the ceiling fan, the papers piled on top of the judge's table. Everything seemed too small to contain what was about to happen. I entered accompanied by lawyer Teresa. He wore discreet clothing, hair tied up, looked steady. On the other side of the room, Sandro. Unlike before, he didn't smile. His face was haggard, but his eyes still carried poison, as if he was sure he would come out clean, as he always did. The judge asked for silence. The prosecutor's representatives were attentive. It wasn't just about forged documents. Now there were suspicions of bribery, omission of identity, association with groups that moved people between states with altered names. And in the middle of it all, there was me, the woman the system said was dead. Teresa was clear in her presentation. She exposed the audios, copies of transactions, records of the reactivated account, and finally, she showed the recording in which Sandro admitted that he had deleted me once and that he could do it again. That silenced the room. The judge asked to hear it again, and then they called me. When I got up, my legs were shaking, but my heart wasn't. I had said those words to myself so many times that now it was like they lived on their own. The judge asked me to tell what I knew. I took a deep breath and started. I told everything. Since I was 15, when I was attracted to a man who claimed to see me. I spoke about deliveries, documents, hunger, early motherhood. I spoke of the need that pushed me into a dirty life, and of the times I tried to leave, but was pulled back in with blackmail and fear. I talked about my daughter, how I hid the truth from her thinking it would protect her. I spoke of the evidence I found, of the system that killed me on paper and that almost killed me in my soul. The judge listened in silence, but what struck me most was the presence of Clara, sitting in the last row. She didn't look away. And there, for the first time in a long time, I felt seen for who I was. A woman who made mistakes, who lied, who chose poorly, but who was there, standing, entire, firm. Sandro tried to defend himself. He said the recording was staged, that I was part of the scheme, that he was trying to use justice to get revenge for an old rejection. He called me trash disguised as a victim. And at that moment, the judge interrupted. He said this was not a court of insults, and that the facts were being seriously checked. For the first time, Sandro's words had no weight. For once, he was the man who needed to explain himself. In the end, the judge ordered the opening of criminal proceedings against him and his accomplices. The process would be long, but the evidence we provided was enough to remove it from circulation. As for me, the case would be re-evaluated in another process, based on the recognition of my status as a cooperating witness. It was not a complete absolution, but it was a step, a start. Upon leaving the forum, the press surrounded me. Some cameras, improvised microphones, cell phones recording. Someone asked why I had come back. Another asked if I regretted what I did. I looked at the nearest camera, took a deep breath and said, I regret keeping silent for so long, but I don't regret surviving, because now I can finally truly exist. Clara approached. I didn't say anything, but he hugged me. And that hug, silent, contained, was stronger than any forgiveness. It was a start, not the beginning of a perfect new life, but the beginning of a possible life, with limits, with pain, with truths, and with dignity. That night, back in my room, I sat in front of the mirror. I looked at myself carefully. The wrinkles, the stains, the marks of time. No makeup could erase what I experienced, but for the first time, I felt proud. Not because it was perfect, but for not letting me erase. For choosing to face it when the easiest thing would have been to keep running away. If you've watched this far and felt that this story speaks to yours, comment with the word dignity. Because it doesn't matter what they tried to do with your story, there's still time to rewrite the ending. If this scene touched you, leave a like now, subscribe to the Emoção de Agência channel, activate the bell, and share with someone who needs to remember that existing is a right, and that, even when the world considers us dead, we can still choose to live. 6 months have passed since the day I looked my past in the eyes and decided not to back down. And now, every morning has a different flavor. It's not a perfect life. There is no red carpet, no medal on the chest, but there is peace. And that, after all, is luxury. Today I live in a small apartment at the back of a simple house. A room, a sink, a window that looks out onto a tree full of birds. The owner of the house is a widow with a sweet voice and calloused hands. She calls me Helena, even though she knows that this is just a part of me. I make custom cakes. I cook with hands that once held envelopes stained with fear. Today, they mix flour with affection. I deliver it by bicycle, wearing a flowered apron that I got from my neighbor's granddaughter. I'm not ashamed of simplicity. She is what sustains me. Clara comes to see me every 2 weeks. We are still recognizing ourselves. There are no tight hugs or exaggerated promises, just coffee on the balcony, short conversations, testing looks. She tells me about her son's school, the report cards, the difficulties. I listen, I smile, I ask whatever is necessary. When she leaves a bag with used clothes, fresh fruit, and a note. The last one said just one sentence. I'm still learning to understand you, but I'm trying. My grandson called me Grandma for the first time 3 weeks ago. He looked at me as I drew with him at the table and said matter-of-factly, "Grandma, can I have the blue one?" I almost dropped my pencil. I didn't cry at the time, only later, in the bathroom. Not for the blue, but for everything that was gray for so long. Some of the cases against Sandro are still ongoing. He is in pre-trial detention while the case unfolds. Some of the people who protected him are no longer able to defend him. The evidence we provided generated further investigations. New names emerged. Some fell, others disappeared. The truth didn't stop with me. She followed, like a river that, after being dammed for a long time, breaks the dam and clears the path. I am still mentioned in some newspapers, sometimes with respect, others with judgment. But now, I don't care. I no longer live by the image. I live for the essence. I walk with my head held high, not because I have forgotten what I was, but because I finally accepted. And only when I accepted it was I able to change. I participate in a support group for women who have left the prison system. I talk little. I listen a lot. But when I am asked to tell my story, I no longer hide it. I say it in all words. I was declared dead by the state. I was silenced by fear. But I chose to return, not to fix everything, but to continue living with what was still mine. My biggest fear has always been that of being rejected by those I loved most. But today, I understand. True love also requires distance, limit, and Clara taught me that. She loves me any way she can, and I love her the way I learned. We are not a TV commercial family. We are real, and in the end, that's what matters. The old bracelet from the hospital now sits on the dresser. Not as a reminder of pain, but as proof that one day I gave birth, and that, despite everything, I was able to give life. The old key was never recovered. Maybe it was taken by someone. Maybe it just disappeared, but there's no need, because the doors I needed to open were within me. Sometimes people ask me if I would change anything, and my answer is simple. I would change the silence. I would have spoken sooner. I would have told my story before I was forced to tell it. Because silence prolongs guilt, and the blame on it only prevents you from living. It took me decades to understand that, more than forgiveness, what I needed was permission. Permission to start over. If you've come this far and are carrying the weight of stories that no one knows, know that you're not alone. No woman reaches 60 without scars, but every scar is a map of what we survived, and each map can take us to a new place, a place where we no longer need to pretend, where we can just breathe. Today, at the end of each afternoon, I sit on the balcony with a cup of tea. I hear the sounds of the street, children playing, dogs barking. I don't need to run away anymore. I don't need to hide anymore. I exist. And this existence, even simple, is my greatest achievement. If this story spoke to some part of you that was forgotten, comment with the word renascer, because sometimes all we need is a chance to breathe again. If you know someone who carries secrets like wounds, share this video. Sometimes hearing a true story is the first step to telling your own. Leave your like, subscribe to the Emoção de Age channel, and activate the bell. Here, we don't tell stories about those who fell. We tell stories of those who decided to get up, even after being presumed dead, because it's never too late to regain your dignity. It's never too late to exist. It's never too late to start over. Some stories don't end with a punchline. Some stories continue, even after the last page, because life doesn't follow a script. It extends in silences, in daily decisions, in looks that say everything that words cannot yet. And that's how my story went. No applause, no headlines, but with small gestures that, together, built something greater than redemption. They built belonging. It's been a few more months since Clara hugged me in court, and in that time, I learned to live without waiting for the perfect time. I started to accept that some wounds don't heal completely, that real forgiveness is not forgetting what happened, but choosing to live with the pain without harboring resentment. Clara didn't come back to live near me. She continued her life firmly, raising my grandson with a courage that I recognize because it is the same that I needed so many times. But today she writes me short messages. Send photos of the boy eating ice cream, drawing, sleeping with the dog on his lap. And that, for me, is more than enough, because now I exist in her life, even if still reluctant. The case against Sandro advances. He was transferred to a medium security penitentiary. He refused an agreement, tried to bribe people from within the system, but the evidence speaks louder than his arrogance. One of his former associates sought out Teresa and handed over documents linking the scheme to international fraud. The truth grew. It came out of me. It became a complaint, a lawsuit, a movement, and that makes me breathe less heavily. The other day, I received an anonymous letter. It was handwritten with shaky handwriting. It just said that I had been stronger than many men, that my story was known by women who never had the chance to speak. At the end of the letter, there was no signature, just a dried flower, stuck together with tape. I kept this flower inside my old Bible, not out of religion, but out of respect for the symbol, because there was proof that my story, however crooked it may have been, served as the root for something to flourish elsewhere. I continued attending the support group. Now, I talk more. I open the words slowly, like someone unwinding a thread that had been stuck for years. The other women listen with wet eyes. Many identify with parts of my trajectory. Some lost children. Others were betrayed by people of blood. Some are trying to get a job over 60 and don't know where to start again. I don't have all the answers, but I say what I learned with pain. Fresh start has no age, but it requires choice and persistence. On Saturdays, I teach literacy classes at a community center. Teaching women to read and write after 50 is like giving back a voice to those who have been silenced their entire lives. When one of them signs her name for the first time and cries, I remember myself trying to recognize myself in the mirror when I found out I was dead in the system. Today, my name is clean on paper, but more importantly, it's clean inside me. I still get scared by sudden noises. I still double lock the door. I still have nights when I dream about cars, about burning documents, about Clara turning my face away. But I wake up, take a deep breath, and choose to get up, because fear now no longer controls me. He walks with me, but does not dictate the direction. A journalist approached me to write a book based on my story. I refused. It's not time yet. I still don't feel ready for other voices to filter what took me so long to understand on my own. But I promise that one day I will be right in my own words. At my pace, no cuts, no frames. The truth is, not all stories need the spotlight. Some just need to be told at the right time, to the right people. And if you've come this far today, perhaps it's because this story also had something to say about yours. Because we all have something we'd like to bury. We've all pretended to be dead to the world at some point. But there is beauty in returning to the surface, even tired, even injured. Sometimes people ask me if I'm happy now. I say it's not about happiness. It's about peace. It's about being able to sit on a park bench without thinking that someone will recognize me for who I was. It's about walking through the market and choosing oranges calmly, without fear of being followed. It's about receiving a good morning from a stranger and responding with a sincere smile. That, to me, is peace. And if you followed everything so far, know that you can also experience this peace. It doesn't matter how deep you've fallen. It doesn't matter how many mistakes you make. There is always a return point, and sometimes that point starts with a simple choice. Tell the truth. Stand, facing whoever tried to erase you, or simply decide to live. If this part of the story gave you hope, comment with the word resistance, because resisting is the first step to starting over. Share with someone who needs strength, an example, living proof that dignity is not lost forever. And if you haven't done this yet, leave your like, subscribe to the Emoção de Age channel, activate the bell. Here, each story is a cry against erasure, and each new beginning is proof that living truthfully is the greatest act of courage. The echoes of truth have their own time. They don't arrive with noise or confetti. They arrive slowly, through discreet messages, unexpected phone calls, looks that were previously avoided and now last for more than 3 seconds. That's exactly how the consequences began to touch other lives around me. One of the women in the support group, named Veronica, came to me at the end of one of the meetings. She had the deep-set eyes of someone who had cried more than slept, but she spoke with a firmness that moved me. He said he watched part of my hearing on the internet. She said that, for the first time, she felt that someone like her was being heard without having to shout. She told me that she had been fighting to regain custody of her granddaughter for 2 years, but her past, with petty theft and a stint in false identity, was used as a justification to keep the child away. And after he saw my story being taken seriously by a judge, he decided to try again. She didn't ask for help. She just wanted to tell me that somehow I had done for her what no one had ever done. Show that dignity can be greater than error. That marked me more than any legal recognition, because it reminded me that stories matter, not because they wash our name, but because they clear the way for other women to pass through with less pain. A few days later, Teresa called me. I said that an organization defending women in situations of institutional invisibility wanted to invite me to participate in a listening circle, not to give a lecture, not even to tell my story as a spectacle, but to listen, welcome, and share. I went. I sat in a circle of worn chairs in a room borrowed from a community library. There, I met women who had lost documents, ties, identities, women who lived decades without CPF, without birth registration, without a formal contract, people who were alive but erased by numbers. I didn't tell everything, but I told enough. And when one of them, named Rosa, who was 67 years old, raised her hand and said that she thought it was too late for her, I looked her in the eyes and said that I thought that too for a long time. But we don't need much to start over. Sometimes it all starts with a yes. Yes to be heard. Yes to exist. Back in the neighborhood where I live, I started to notice that the neighbors no longer whispered when I passed by, or maybe I stopped listening. One day, the grocery store owner told me that she had watched the video with my story. She spoke simply, without exaggeration. I just said that I thought it was beautiful to see a woman my age with the courage to come back and stay. People started asking me for advice. Not great advice like a lawyer or counselor, but little advice. Where to seek help to regularize a document. How to speak to the public defender's office. How to request a duplicate of an old registration. It was as if my past, so dirty and hidden, now served as a manual for others to clean their own paths. I was invited to participate in a community radio interview. I refused. I'm still not comfortable with microphones, but I wrote a letter which was read live by the presenter. In it, I said the one I never wanted to become an example of, that there is no heroism in surviving. But if someone needed courage to return home, to look for a child, to get out of the false name, they could use my story as a bridge. My grandson sent me a drawing. She was a woman with a huge heart in her chest. All around her, there were little stars. He wrote that it was me, and that I was now a star of courage. I kept this paper on my bedroom wall, not out of vanity, but because for a long time, I saw myself as a whole. Today, I can see myself as a point of light. I also received an official letter from the defender's office, recognizing my collaboration in a public process and recommending easier access to social reintegration programs. It's just a role, but it represents something that has always been denied to me: recognition without judgment. Not everything is flowers. I still get crossed looks. There are still those who say that a woman like me should remain in the dark, that the right thing would be to disappear for good. But these voices no longer have power, because now I understand that the opinion of someone who has never seen me from the inside does not define the value of my journey. The other day, I met Yolanda again. We went to have coffee in an old bakery. She said she's proud of me, that, when she looks at me, she sees the girl who survived the worst scenarios and still found a way to rebuild with her own hands. We hugged, long, strong, like someone celebrating the impossible. Today, I write by hand every night. It's not daily, it's a seed notebook. In it, I write down phrases that I heard, that I lived, that I thought, and maybe one day they will see a book. A book not about tragedy, but about return. Because dying in the system is one thing, but being reborn in your own skin is much more difficult and much more beautiful. If you've made it this far, you might need to hear this now. You are not alone. You are not your mistake. You are not what they took from you. You are what you decide to plant from now on, with pain, with fear, with memory, but with choice. Comment with the word seed if this story germinated something inside you. Share with someone who needs to believe again that life is not over. Leave your like, subscribe to the unforgettable channel, activate the bell. Here, each story is a root, and each woman who blossoms is a response to the world that tried to bury her existence. Because we are still alive, and that, in itself, is already a revolution. True transformation is not always noisy. It happens in the silence of details, in the daily choices that no one sees, in the way you respond to the world after being broken by it. And that's how my life went on, like a firm sewing thread that holds the most torn fabrics without needing applause. The community center where I teach started welcoming more mature women. Some arrive shy, looking at the floor with empty notebooks and shrunken hands. Others arrive suspicious, as if they don't believe there is still room for them in such a fast-paced world. But over time, they begin to loosen. One reads her name out loud for the first time. Another writes the word daughter with tears in her eyes. And I watch, not as a teacher, but as a witness that it is possible to rebuild meaning, even in ruins. My routine took shape. I wake up early, prepare my coffee calmly, sweep the sidewalk even when no one passes by. I learned to value the sound of the kettle, the wind coming through the window, the sound of dry leaves being stepped on the street. These sounds, which previously went unnoticed, today remind me that I am alive, not as a name on record, but as someone who fully inhabits the present. The other day, I received a call from a government social program. Someone nominated my name to help with a project to reintegrate abandoned women. The proposal was simple: help other women put together their stories on paper, report, organize, record. I accepted. And there, sitting in front of files, listening to voices that barely came out of my throat, I realized that the pain wasn't just mine. She had many versions, many faces, many names forgotten by time. One of them, called Alda, told me that she lived 20 years under someone else's name. She ran away from a violent husband and used the identity of a dead woman to get work. When she was discovered, she lost everything. But now, with the help of the project, I began to put together the real documentation. At the end of the service, she told me that she only decided to try because she saw my story on television, and that if a woman who was buried in paper managed to be reborn, maybe she could too. It's not fame. It's not victory. It's repair. Every story heard, every record recovered, every woman who comes back into existence before the state is a crack in the system that tried to erase us. And each of these cracks is a form of resistance. Clara continues in her life. Sometimes he calls me just to hear my voice. Other times, he just sends a photo or a short audio of his grandson, Kian Ting. We no longer charge each other anything. We just exist as we are. And this type of love is the most mature I have known. A love without demands, but with presence. I also received an invitation to participate in a documentary. At first, I refused, but then I thought that maybe it was time to leave this story on record for whoever comes after me. Not as a symbol, but as a bridge. I recorded the statements in a simple studio with yellowish light and respectful silence. I spoke calmly. No flourishes. I told what was necessary. In the end, I left a sentence written on paper that will be read in the last scene of the documentary. It is written like this: I don't remember all the names I used, but I remember the moment I answered for mine again. And in that instant, I became whole. Today, when I walk through the neighborhood fair, I hear my real name being called naturally. Have a good day, Helena. Thank you, Ms. Helena. They are simple words, but for me they are medals, because they return me to the surface. After being buried alive by systems, by errors, by silences, now I'm here, not to prove anything, but to live truthfully. On the coldest nights, I still feel scared. I still revisit memories that hurt. I still dream of dark places. But today, when I wake up, I don't run away. I turn on the light, put my feet on the floor, and repeat to myself what I wrote in the seed notebook. You don't need forgiveness to exist. You need courage to continue. If this entire journey has affected you, if at any point you felt that parts of you were also erased by the world, comment with the word presence. Because being present, after all, is the greatest act of victory. Share this story with someone who needs to recognize themselves again. Leave your like, subscribe to the Emoção de Velho channel, activate the bell. Here, each story is more than overcoming. It is a legitimate presence in the world, even when everything tried to take us off the map. There was a time when I thought that dying was disappearing, that death was the end. Today, after everything, I understand that dying means no longer being remembered. It means no longer having an echo. It's about not leaving marks. And for many years, I was a woman who existed without a trace. Now the marks I leave are not wounds. These are signs that I have passed, and that for me is life. The community center project grew. We begin with 7 women sitting on borrowed chairs. Today, we have more than 30. They arrive with downcast eyes, intertwined stories of violence, abandonment, and shame. But within a few weeks, some raise their hands to say they finally understood a contract. Others say they were able to schedule a health exam without fear. There was one, called Janilda, who wrote her own name for the first time at the age of 63. And when he finished, he looked at me with tears on his face and said that now he could leave something signed for his grandchildren. These moments are invisible in the newspapers, but they are profound victories. They are small revolutions that are born in silence and change the world around them. I was invited to attend a hearing on public policies aimed at women in situations of documentary abandonment. I sat in the back of the room, listening to technical terms, cold statistics, graphs. But when one of the committee representatives asked for someone to speak from their own experience, the other women in the room pointed to me. I stood. The voice came calmly, and I said what I needed to say. I am not a number. I am not a mistake. I was forgotten, but I was not erased. And if I'm here now, it's because I chose not to be buried in silence. The room fell silent. Then some claps appeared, discreet but true. And at that moment, more than being heard, I was considered. Seen as someone who not only survived, but helped change the outlook of those who never understood what it means to live without an official name. I received an invitation from a public school in the outskirts. The coordinator, a woman with a strong voice, said she wanted teenage students to hear about the value of their own history. I went there. I sat in a circle with girls between 14 and 17 years old. They listened in silence. Some cried. Others asked if I ever wanted to disappear from the world. I answered honestly. He said he already wanted to. Yes, but I chose to stay. Because living truthfully, even with all the consequences, is always better than living in hiding. At the end of the meeting, a girl handed me a note in hurried handwriting. It was written that she had thought about giving up school, but now she wanted to try some more. She said she wanted to be truly seen. That disarmed me. I returned home with that paper in my pocket and my heart full of purpose. Today, I have a different routine. I remain simple, but with presence. I am part of an informal committee to support elderly women without family ties. We help with paperwork, guidance, or just listening. Because listening is sometimes all it takes that someone needs to feel alive again. I also participate in a small group that helps with the reconstruction of documents lost to fires, floods, or abandonment. Women who lived 30, 40 years on the sidelines and now want, little by little, to get back on the map. It's not about status. It's about officially existing, have access to medicine, to a fair retirement, a valid name. My story is no longer just mine. She now walks alongside others. and I no longer control the path she takes. I just keep walking, holding tight to my peace, my lucidity, and my choice to live with dignity until the last day. Clara took me to the doctor the other day, a routine appointment. She held my exams while I filled out the form. When she got to the responsible person's name, she wrote her own name, and next to it, in parentheses, she wrote daughter. He didn't say anything, but that parenthesis was bigger than any speech. The grandson grew up. Now call me by name. She says I'm your grandmother in a loud and firm voice. He draws me with a cape, as if I were some kind of domestic heroine. I smile, but explain that the heroine is the one who takes care, the one who returns, the one who stays, and that, if he wants to be someone big, he needs to learn to respect small stories, the ones that the world tries to forget. If you have followed this story so far, comment with the word trajectory, because life is not made of happy endings. It is made up of honest paths. Share with those who need to remember that there is still time to change. Leave your like, subscribe to the unforgettable channel, activate the bell. Here, we don't tell stories about who won everything. We tell stories of those who chose to continue despite everything going against them. Because existing with courage, after being erased, is the most beautiful form of resistance a woman can offer the world. Sometimes, when the sun sets behind the old houses on my street, I sit on the wooden chair by the window and just watch. The sky changes color, the birds cross the air in a hurry, and the silence that arrives is no longer empty. It's rest. A rest that took me more than 60 years to achieve. A rest that did not come from favors, but from confrontations. It's strange to think that it all started with an absurd sentence. The lady is dead. This phrase, which at first terrified me, today sounds like a metaphor for everything I was forced to bury to survive. And yet, I'm still here. With the soul sewn up inside, with the wounds transformed into new skin, with a heart that still beats, even after so many falls. I'm not perfect. I never went. But I learned that dignity doesn't live in perfection. She lives in the decision to no longer lie to herself, to no longer accept living on our knees for the mistakes that have been imposed on us or for those that we have committed. It lives in the courage to look into the eyes of those we hurt and say, I did what I thought I needed to do, but today I want to do it differently. She lives in the strength of saying, I'm still here. Today, I thank each person who listened to me, to each woman who shared her story with me, her silences, her loose pieces, to each one who told me in a low voice that they saw themselves in me, even without having ever gone through everything I went through, because it's not about repeating paths. It's about recognizing similar pains, similar guilt, scars that, even with different shapes, burn the same way. I thank Clara, my daughter, for coming back, for choosing to listen, for allowing me to be in her life again, even if little by little, even if carefully. I thank my grandson, who taught me that love can also be born late, that there is no right age to build affection, that blood can be weight, but it can also be a bridge. I thank the women in the group who gave me a reason to get up when shame still insisted on pulling me back. I thank Teresa, who believed in my words when no one else did. I thank my childhood friend, Yolanda, who gave me more than documents. It gave me memory, got back to me. And I thank myself for not accepting the version that I should disappear, for not killing me inside when the world tried to bury me in paper, for resisting, even when it hurt more than I can explain in words. I learned that pain teaches, but listening heals, that it's not enough to survive. You have to do something with what the pain left behind. Transform into gesture, in help, in words, in presence. I learned that telling the truth does not erase the past, but it gives new meaning. And sometimes, that's enough. Today, I don't want you to feel sorry for me. I don't want them to see me as an example or a hero. I just want my story to serve as a candle lit in a dark room, a small but constant light. A reminder that there is still time, that even if they took everything away from you, if you are still breathing, there is still something that can be rebuilt. Because it's not about beating the world, but to overcome oneself, Lencio. The paralysis itself, the very idea that it is already too late to love, too late to start over, too late to ask for forgiveness, too late to say enough is enough. It's never too late for any of this. That's the lesson I take with me, the lesson I leave. If you listen to this story until the end, if something inside you moved, if tears came, or if old memories came back, Know that this is not weakness. This is a sign that you are still alive inside. And being alive inside is the only necessary condition to write a different ending. Comment with the word light if this story lit something inside you. Share with someone who may need to hear this before making an important decision. Leave your like, subscribe to the Emoção de Velo channel, activate the bell. Here, we don't pretend that life was easy. We honor those who had the courage to continue even when everything seemed lost. May your story, like mine, find space to flourish, even if it's at the last curve of the path. Because flowers that bloom late also perfume the road, and sometimes they are the ones that make the most impression on those who pass by. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you for seeing me. And thank you, most of all, for remembering that women like us can still choose to live truthfully until the end.